Welcome to the Backpacking Blisters podcast, brought to you by Enlightened Equipment, where you can find the best ultralight quilts on the market at enlightenedequipment.com. With me today is a man that is more trusted than the Google search engine, Cris Hazzard. How's it going today, sir?
Hey, Carl. Thanks for having me. I don't know if I'm more trusted than Google. Well, I don't know. People don't trust tech anymore, right? So
I think people go to you when they want the tech. People go to you when they
yeah.
want to find some. I mean, that's my take. I don't know. What's your take on this? What would you say is the main reason people visit your YouTube channel?
I probably because I'm very good looking. I'm a very attractive man. They just want to see my face. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I have two audiences. When I started it was or the website, it was just trail guides, right? I was just sharing trail guides. So there's a core part of my audience who just comes to me for trail guides. So I have guides for, Southern California, Yosemite, different bucket list hikes, Grand Canyon, bunch of them. So there's a bunch of people who just come for that. And then there's people who come for the gear and the tech, because I share, my thoughts and tutorials on using a Garmin watch or handheld GPS or satellite communicator. But it's been an interesting conundrum, maybe a good one to have, because when you're on YouTube doesn't like that you talk about different things.
Right. For sure.
The algorithm gets confused. So I look at myself as like, I'm your hiking buddy. And if you're not a hiker all the time and you want to go like, hey, I'm going to hike Mount Whitney. What do I need to know? Or I need some hiking shoes. What do I get? I want to be like your buddy who's like, oh, do this, do that, do the other thing. But Google does, YouTube doesn't like that so much. It gets confused. It just wants you to talk about like watches or tents or something like that.
Right.
So it's been a challenge, because when I post a trail guide, obviously I do a lot worse than a gear guide. People want to buy gear. YouTube promotes things that are going to sell things for YouTube. So, so it's been interesting. I have these two sort of hemispheres of audiences, and I think there's an overlap for some of them, but some people, if you're in Colorado, you probably don't care about a trail in Southern California.
You'd be surprised. Yeah. I don't know, man. There's a popular trail that's popping up in terms of Southern California is where it's, I don't know. I would say that the popularity is skyrocketing is that Catalina, the Trans Catalina Trail. I've seen people doing that.
That's a good one. Yeah, I've got a guide up for that. It's funny. I see people either loving or hating that one. It's not a lot of single track. There's a lot of it's kind of like wide trails. Have you done that one when you're out here?
So I've been to Catalina a few times, but I've actually got it scheduled for about a month out from now. So
nice.
Yeah. And the reason, and you're right, it's a weird hike. You end up some of the time at like essentially pre-established campsites, and there's not a lot of coverage, not a lot of trees. But like this time of year is tough to go backpacking, especially like in the mountain regions. And so you can go to desert areas, which I love, but not everybody does. You can head east and go to places like Red River Gorge in like Kentucky, which is great. And I'm going to probably do that in the future again. But if you're looking for variety and options in the month of April, there's not as much. So I think that's a draw for me anyway.
Yeah, that's a great choice for that Trans Catalina.
Okay, so what we've got today is we've got like we're talking trail tech, trail gadgets, whatever you want to say. And so you're gonna present the ones that you think are the best from your experience. And I've got one that I like too, but I'm gonna present the ones that I've had a hard time with or that I don't like. And we'll kind of go back and forth with this. So, but before we get to it, one of the big conversations that you have on YouTube, your YouTube channel has to do with the locator beacons. And that might even be one of your answers. But can we get in like where we are right now? Can we get an update on these? My big question is like, can we stop bringing these things yet? Where are we?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's an interesting time. It's sort of the Wild West when it comes to satellite stuff, because the iPhone's had satellite now for, I don't know, 3 years or so. The Google Pixel has satellite SOS for about a half year, maybe a little bit longer. Now there's Starlink beta for T-Mobile, so you can have I've been testing that last couple weeks. Verizon just announced that if you have a Pixel 9, you can now text over satellite, just regular text, in addition to SOS. And then today, 2 other mobile carriers announced that you can do SOS. So it's interesting because it's all different technologies. When the standard Garmin inReach has been around for a while, that uses the Iridium satellites. It's a very robust satellite network, works in Antarctica, the Arctic, anywhere. I've had users send me pictures. They've gone on cruises to Antarctica and did a check-in on their inReach. Pretty cool.
That is cool.
But now we have people who would never even know about an inReach can now dial SOS if they're stuck out on a hike somewhere. So that's a good thing. The non-emergency messaging I've been testing on Starlink and the Apple, it's okay, but I don't know whether I would risk my life on it or have my life depend on that working.
Okay.
That said, I mean, I've seen news stories of people, some kids in Utah were in a slot canyon, and this is the spot you would never think would have reception, and they use their iPhone satellite SOS to get out.
Wow,
it does work, but I think if you are outside all the time and you just you want to live, investing in an inReach probably still makes sense, unfortunately.
Okay. I was hoping for a different answer. I'll be honest.
Well, what's cool so Garmin just a few months ago changed all the pricing plans around, and
I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, so I know, right? A lot of these recurring bills, they just happen, and it's is it
no?
$13.99
I'm
or
super
$29.99?
sensitive to the price gouging, and so I don't want that. And I've actually challenged Garmin on that before, and they don't have a good answer. So what's going on now?
Yeah. That's always a good rule of thumb. Garmin won't have a good answer.
Yeah.
Well, they used to have 2 types of plans. They had ones that you can, I think they called them freedom plans, where you could turn them on and turn them off, and that's gone away. And now it's just plans. But there's one plan that's not published. It's called the enabled plan. So if you want to just have an inReach and just use it for SOS in case of an emergency, you can get this enabled plan, which I don't know what it is. It might be $7.99 a month, something around there. And then the SOS works. You can still, I think you can send messages. Don't quote me on that. I think you could do some things. You just pay for it. You pay for them per message. But if you just want it for SOS, you can go down to $8 a month, and you can find that if you just Google, Garmin inReach enabled plan, it'll bring you to a help page. It's not one of the published plans. You have to sign up for a published plan, then threaten to cancel it, and then you get that option.
Threaten to cancel it.
Welcome to Garmin. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. Okay. I'm a customer for that type of plan. I don't know how many people are, because I know a lot of people just love that messaging feature when they're out there. And for me, when I get out there, I don't want that. I want to stop getting the messages. I want to take a break from that. But some people like that. And so I get that. But that's interesting. The one thing that I don't even mind that kind of monthly subscription cost. It's the annual fee tacked on top of that. So it's oh yeah, pay $8 a month, whatever it is. Oh, but then there's a $50 annual fee or $35 or whatever it is, right?
That's gone away. Now there's just an activation fee, which is still
that's what that is. That's all that is. When you turn it off, we don't pay that activation fee, and you shut it off. Now you have a device that's not usable, and you're okay, well, summer's coming. Let's say I'm going to reactivate it. That's the annual fee, right?
That's the plan that went away.
Okay.
That's the one that was called the Freedom Plan, I believe. And you could do that. You'd pay essentially an activation fee every year, this annual fee, in order to turn it on and off.
Oh.
But that's gone away.
So it's just one fee, you're saying? One total?
One fee. Yep.
Okay. All right. That's more palatable, I suppose. But
it's still not competitive, and it's gonna all change at some point. The Starlink, I think they announced it's going to be anywhere between $10 and $20, depending on the plan you have to text for satellite per month, which is not great. But this is all going to explode in the next few years, and you're going to have every, just about every phone's going to be able to text over satellite. And then it'll be interesting to see what Garmin does. I mean, Garmin always has the advantage because these inReaches are durable pieces of gear with long batteries. You can't say that about phones. So it'll always be niche, and they might just leave the prices there because they know it's niche. But I'm hoping they do something more interesting. I hope they come up with new technology that utilizes Iridium and has, different features and, who knows what. I mean, they came out with a messenger probably a half a year ago now, maybe more, called the Messenger Plus, which allows you to send images and voice messages, not a voice call. And it uses a little bit of a different technology. It uses Iridium still, but a modem or a service called Certus. But I'm hoping to see more of that, so the inReach gets more interesting and more useful,
Right.
as opposed to just kind of sitting there as a niche product.
Right. Okay. Well, I'll probably ask you this question every time you're willing to come on the podcast, and then hoping for like, it might be years down the road. You're like, now's the time. Now's the time. You can sell that dang thing on eBay or whatever.
That said, if you only hike once in a while or only go backpacking once in a while, and you don't want to get an inReach, and you have an iPhone and you have, satellite and Starlink, I think it's acceptable to use that. Make sure you have an extra battery so you could charge it up, get like a OtterBox case so it doesn't smash easily. And I think that's doable. Like, I wouldn't, if you're not going out there a lot, people have been saved. Lives have been saved with these cell phones that are satellite connected. And then there's another thing that you can do. I'm working on a video on it now. You can rent an inReach. There's companies, you just have to Google it. You can just Google and rent an inReach for a weekend. So if you're doing like that hardcore trip, Catalina, you don't need that. But if you're doing like a hardcore backpacking trip in the middle of, Yellowstone, where there's no trails or anything, or Alaska, rent an inReach for whatever it is and use it then, and then call it a day.
Okay. That's good. Yeah, that's a good one. I'll look forward to that video for sure. Okay. So all that said, and I don't know if any of these devices are making your top list, but all right, let's jump into the best trail tech on the market, best trail gadgets. What is your number one? Which one that you recommend? You've tested it, you love it. What do you like?
Yeah. The one that's been a champ is the inReach Mini 2.
Okay.
Satellite communicator. It's small. It's 100 grams. It's durable. I mean, I've smashed and thrashed mine many times, and it just works. The battery is long. It's got limited navigation. There's no maps on it, but you can load your course. So if you're a Garmin user and you have a course that you make, maybe it's on your watch, you can throw that onto the Mini 2 as well. And then in a pinch, you can navigate. There's no maps, but you can say, am I on the line or not on the line? You can do things like track back on there. And it just works real well for a lot of people. I think it's just, if you're going to get like one tech gadget for the outdoors, it would probably be that, just because it can save your life. And you can also, like we talked about messaging a second ago, like I don't message a lot, but what I do is I'll send my wife a message if I'm going to be late, so she doesn't freak out. Or I mean, she might freak out anyway, but I also do the location tracking. So I have that plan where I can leave the breadcrumb trail, because I always think if something catastrophic happened to me, I have a heart attack, I have a stroke, a hiker is walking a switchback above me and kicks a stone off and it hits me in the head, and I'm like now laying unconscious, how are people going to find me? And if you do that breadcrumb trail and somebody has it, like, a relative, knows that you've been here, it's easy enough to share that link with search and rescue, and they can just follow that line and find you within 10 minutes. So for me, that makes it worth the expense. And that's something you can do on the Mini 2 as well.
Okay. So and your devices. So of all of these devices, the satellite beacons, if you had to pick one, that's the one you're picking.
I think that's the best fit for most people. There's one that I also use. It's a GPS Map 67i. It's the one, hold on, not here. Thought it was here. It's the big, the old school Garmin GPS with the maps on it. It's that and an inReach together. And that one is great because it has all of the maps for your continent preloaded on there. So I was in the Black Hills a couple months ago. It was snowing. I had gloves on. I was hiking. I wanted to do, there was like side trail, and I had some extra time, and I was like, I'm going to go explore this. And I was able to go on there, just kind of check out how long it would be. I had a map for where I was, but the map ended, like where I wanted to go was on the edge of the map. So I didn't have the paper for that, of course. Yeah. That's how it is in the outdoors. That's like a perfect example of what will happen that you didn't expect. With this device, I could just look on there and check it out. It was, I could have used my phone too, but I had gloves on. It was snowing. It wasn't real great weather for the touchscreen, and it was good. I was able to do some exploring, and that's great. I got an InReach weather report on there, and it's like a bigger color screen, so I was able to see like the weather real easy. And that's a good buy too. That's probably the best. If you just needed one thing that's going to keep you safe and help you navigate, that 67i is pretty solid.
Okay. Couple thoughts on things you said there. So first of all, yeah, the map thing's funny because I used to be in the adventure racing scene, and you were forced to use the hard copy maps, but because some of those maps were so massive and covered such a vast areas you would never expect to go, people would cut their maps down.
Yeah.
And so that way they could find where they were in the map. Like, it's more efficient, it's faster. But of course, people would cut too much and get lost. And then now they don't have a map. And so that was a common problem, like self-inflicted wound there. So bringing up memories of that. The other thought that I had was you mentioned about how like you thrashed about with the InReach Mini 2. And so is that on accident, or are you thrashing it on purpose because you're like the gear tester? You're like, is this thing really going to hold up?
It's mainly on accident, but I'm not shy about throwing it around. Just because I've never broken an InReach. I'm not saying it can't be done, but I've never broken an InReach. And so, sometimes I might be like, let's say it on the subdome of Half Dome, and it's all granite. I might just take it and I'll be like, throw it up in the air and drop it down, see what happens. Like just for giggles, just to see if I can actually break it. But a lot of the times, if I'm going through a slot canyon, I'm like, it's under my pack and it's like going against the granite. Scraping, I'm dropping my pack. I forget that it's on there and it's like banging onto the ground. And using it in the rain and different things like that. It's just, it just keeps working. The buttons are big and clunky. Yeah, it's good.
Okay. That's good. Okay. All right. That's good to know. All right. Now it's my turn to share my number one piece of gear that I don't like. This is probably one of the most popular pieces of gear that you'd see in the backcountry, and that is the GoPro right here. Are you a GoPro user?
Carl, so I've got a GoPro story for you. Brace yourself. So when I used to shoot my trail guides, I used to shoot them on GoPros all the time.
Yeah.
I've got hundreds of trail guides on my website, all on a GoPro. I won the Enchantments lottery to go camping in the Enchantments. One of the hardest lotteries. This was I actually won it this year too, but I won it years ago. I had 2 GoPros. I'd bring them with me, to shoot.
Yeah.
And I get to the trailhead, and at home, it updated the firmware and charged the battery, everything. Yeah, it's working. Blah blah blah. Get to the trailhead. Both like just keep rebooting. Exact same problem on both of them. So I had backups and they both failed on me at the beginning of that hike, and I wasn't able to shoot it. And I said, never again will I use a GoPro.
Yeah. Well, I've said that too. And then I keep on getting one because I keep on looking at reviews. So this is the 10. I don't know which one they're on right now. I've had your issue where they failed on me or like it erases the memory card.
Yep.
I've even bought accessories where it has a better microphone, and that one like totally jacked up the system. And so I'm like 3 or 4 GoPros in, and I'm still a sucker and still got this one, but I think I'm going to sell this and then never buy one again. I think I finally convinced myself not to do that. But anyway, and then other things too is like at one point, because I'm so hard on it, and I've lost one in a stream in the Sierras. I've like where it pops off of the mount. I've smashed one before. So I actually they have this like GoPro insurance deal. And I'm like, does that mean if I like send in my smashed GoPro, like I can just get it replaced? And so one of the last ones I bought the insurance, and then I guess I didn't read the fine print, but it ended up being, like you paid the insurance fee, and then you still ended up paying a significant part of the cost to replace it, plus the shipping and all that stuff. And so, so I just like overall, I would just say I don't trust the device. I don't trust the company. And I'm ashamed that I bought so many of them.
Yeah. Well, I've been there. So the new move now because cameras on the internet is another wormhole on YouTube and everything. So I've done so
Oh
much
yeah.
research. The best action camera, if you want a replacement, is the DJI Osmo Action 5 Pro. That was a mouthful, but
Yeah.
that one is great. It works. It's reliable. I've had a 4 on that one. I had a 5. They just work real well. The mount is good. You can even buy. They make these little microphones. There's 2 flavors of it. There's like a really small one and a less small one, and they'll pair up with the camera without any kind of like external thing. They just pair up with the insides of it through
Oh,
Bluetooth.
interesting. Yeah. I've
So I
looked
can
at
go out
those.
with that and shoot a trail guide and just have like a super minimal kit, not heavy,
Right.
and it works well. When the light gets low, none of those things really work too well, but for
For
most
sure. For
cases,
sure.
yeah,
Okay.
it's good.
All right. That's good. That's good information. That's good. That's a good. I like that you're offering alternative. That way I'm not just bashing the gear. So yeah, I've been using my phone. I've been using, and a lot of those phones have pretty good stabilization now. So I'll bring like an ultralight tripod if I really want to film some stuff, and I can use it as a holder or obviously as a tripod itself, and that's worked pretty well. But that's where I'm going now. So all right, what's number 2? Your number 2 tech device you recommend?
Yeah, I'd say a hiking watch. Now, what watch you pick,
There's a million
there's
of them.
a million of them, but I love just being able. I was in Joshua Tree last few days, and I'd revisiting some trails I hadn't been on in a while. Come to places where maybe now there's like a use trail, a social trail going off, but it's popular. I could see it's like well trodden, and I'm like, do I go right or left? And just being able to glance at the watch, and be like, oh,
Right.
line says go right. That's helpful. That
Oh, for
lets me
sure.
hike more without like pulling out the phone, pulling out a map, doing like a deep dive. I can just look down and like answer that question in a matter of seconds. Um, I was always a Garmin guy. I've used Garmin's. I think I forget what it was, a Forerunner 310. Like I've had them for years and years. Probably going
Right.
on 20 years for running and different things. But the latest Garmin Fenix 8 has been disappointing. Hardware is okay, but they redid the software, and there's been so many bugs, so many bugs.
Mm,
Um,
okay.
and for me, it was the reliability. Like it would restart, uh, and it wasn't. If you just used it every day, like track your sleep and track a run or something,
Right.
it was fine. It wasn't until you got into the navigation and got a little
Oh, I see.
deeper that things would start falling apart. So I haven't been using that. I've been using my Apple Watch Ultra 2,
Okay.
and I've been using it with an app called Footpath, which gives you like
Interesting.
little turn by turn directions, and you can do course points and do all that Garmin stuff. But if I had to choose a Garmin, I'd probably, in retrospect, if I had big bucks, I'd go back and I'd get the Enduro 3. I think that's been pretty stable.
Okay. How much are the Enduro 3s going for nowadays?
$900. Not
Looking it up
cheap.
as we talk. Okay. You hit the nail right on the head.
Yeah.
$900 exactly.
I've thought
Yeah.
about it.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and these watches, I mean, you're talking about the ones specifically that have the maps on them, and there's all sorts of different features. They have, like the solar watches. They
Yeah.
have, pairing with like smart type watches, kind of like similar to the Apple watches. So if you're looking for just basic trackers, more of like a beefed up Fitbit, that's where I was shopping because I'm just looking to track my training. But when I track my training, like I use Strava on my phone, it
Yeah.
doesn't do a good job with hiking. It does fine for running and biking, but hiking, it doesn't pick it up. And so I was
Yeah.
looking at these different watches, and because like I don't know, because of my PTSD with that Garmin annual fee for their locator beacons, I was like, I'm going to try to go off brand here. But when I compared reviews, it looked like the Garmin still hold up better than some of the other brands. Is that what you're finding?
Yeah. I mean, the Garmin, even though there's been firmware glitches, like generally the Garmins are okay. They're good. There's Koros, which are real good.
Right.
Sunto are good. The Sunto Verdix Solar, I think it's a Verdix. I can't remember,
I
but
was
there's
looking at Sunto's, and they were the lowest of all the rated watches.
huh.
They
Yeah, I
weren't,
mean,
none of them were like low, like 2 stars, but they were just some that didn't
didn't
matchup,
come.
I
Yeah,
suppose.
it's strange. I mean, what I've found when I look at reviews for tech, especially outdoor tech, that's not as slick as like a phone, is people will give it bad reviews because they can't figure it out. And I
Okay.
think that's a valid concern. If you can't figure out how to use something because it's so so convoluted, the operating system, that's a problem. But in general, I've seen good GPS accuracy with the Garmin, with the Coros, with the Sunto.
Okay.
If you want a basic one, and here's where a lot of the problem lies, I think, for people is if you're using your watch as a health tracker, right? You want to do the sleep tracking, you want to get your like training stress score and track everything
Right.
together. Um, there's not one good choice. Like the Apple Watch
Okay.
Ultra is really good for sleep. My Garmin Fenix 8 is definitely not as good for sleep. Both these watches are good for tracking, but the Garmin lacks some safety features that this one has. It's just like this infinite trade-off that you
Right.
have to figure out, and you kind of have to commit. Like, am I going to be in the Garmin ecosystem, or am I going to be in another ecosystem and have like my sleep tracking and my training stress and all those things together? Or you
Hmm.
switch it up, you get something like Training Peaks, where everything is feeding into one place, and then in
Hmm.
Training Peaks, it'll calculate all your your training kind of stuff that you need there. But none of them
Right.
do a good job with hiking because you're out there 8 hours, your heart rate is like zone 1 and 2, maybe like up into 3 a little bit,
Hmm.
and it looks at it as something easy, even though you come home and you're like wiped out because
Right.
you've been on your feet for 8 hours. None of them really handle that well when it comes to like working that in with other structured workouts.
Okay.
That was a lot of an
Interesting.
answer. That was a big answer there. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's helpful to know. But you're right about the ecosystems and trying to kind of stick with them. Like that's part of the deal, and that makes it easier to learn the new stuff anyway because you're used to the how the buttons work and where to go. So
Yeah.
yeah, okay,
Just to finish up on that, I'll tell you why I've been using, like, I would wear the Garmin, even though there's some problems, but the Apple Watch Ultra or other Apple Watches too that have cellular, it has something called fall detection.
right.
So if you were to fall, it will call 911 for you. So let's say you
Hmm.
fall and you're unconscious, you have a stroke, you have a heart attack, and you're laying on the ground. It detects it. It will call 911 for you. The Garmin doesn't do that. The Garmin has
Hmm.
something called incident detection that only works when you're in an activity and when you have your phone with you. And if you have your phone and the Garmin with you and they're all connected and you get hit by a car on your bike or you have a heart attack when you're running, it will notify your emergency contacts. It won't call
Okay.
911. Um,
Hmm.
so for
Wait a
me, just
second. So yes, sorry to
yeah,
interrupt you. So
yeah.
yesterday I was out on a trail run, and the trail I chose was like a little bit too snowy and muddy and slippy. So I actually took a fall yesterday. I just slipped on the
Huh.
mud, and it was a hard fall. Like it wasn't like a like whoopsies. It was like I actually like had to recover and wipe mud and snow off myself. Had I been wearing that Apple Watch, would that have auto called 911 for me?
It would have started to. It gives you an option to cancel it,
Okay.
um, and that's if you're in cellular range.
Okay.
There's
Questionable. Gotcha.
supposedly the Apple Watch 3, according to the rumors, will have satellite connectivity. The
Okay.
Ultra 3.
Right.
Obviously, I don't know that, but in that case, it would use the satellite. And if you had your iPhone with you and your iPhone had satellite connectivity and you fell with your Apple Watch, it would use the iPhone over satellite.
Okay.
That's a pretty powerful thing to have. I mean, we're talking extreme edge case, but again, you fell yesterday. Like things happen. Things just happen
Right.
that no
They
matter how
do.
much you prepare, things just happen.
Okay. Good to know. Okay. Well, moving from watches, I'm not sure if you've ever used these guys. These are sleeping pad inflators.
Uh,
Man, I thought you were gonna push back on all my answers, but you're it sounds like you and I are in sync on this. This one's the FlexTail Zero pump that I've got right here.
yeah.
And people swore by these, and so I was like, all right, I'll tell you what. Like I thought these were silly, and so I thought I'd give them a try. So I used it all last year, and it works. It does a great job. It inflates the pad and it's efficient. But again, it doesn't weigh a whole lot. It weighs a few ounces. It's a good deal as far as, taking away one of the camp chores people don't typically enjoy. But 12 breaths, and I've got one less thing to carry, one less thing to charge, one less thing to worry about, one less small thing that's I consider like pack clutter that I've got to keep track of. As I've gotten older, I've realized, man, when I want something in like my top pouch, my pack or my backpack, I don't want to be sifting through like a million different things. Oh, I grab something that feels like it. No, wrong thing. And so I just want fewer things rummaging around. And even if I have them sorted out into bags, I just want fewer things to keep track of. And so I'm going to say no on this one. I'm not bringing any more sleeping pad inflators. I'm going to inflate my own pad. I'm not going to create noise pollution. And that's my take on it. What's your take?
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I remember there was a time, it was like 3 or 4 years ago, when everyone on the internet everyone on YouTube was this is gold. Let's get this thing.
Right.
And of course I got one because I'm the sucker. And I'm like, I plug in and you're like, yeah, this is okay. This,
it's okay. Exactly.
When you have that bag, when you just do that small breath into the big, like if you're blowing into the tube, you're into the pad, you're doing it the wrong way. You get that bag, you scoop a little air, you roll it up. How many it takes, like you said, like 5 or 6 like things like that, and it works. Like that to me is not a good trade-off in terms of I'm carrying another thing, like you said, like another piece of stuff that I have to charge and keep track of. And when I backpack, I'm pretty minimal. I don't bring a chair with me. I just like, I don't want a lot of stuff. I don't want to carry stuff.
Sure.
I don't want to deal with stuff.
Right. And so, and the argument for these things, maybe not for this one specifically, but there's a lot of these that are lighter weight than the bag itself, than the inflation bag. And so people will say that, but a lot of those you have to plug into an external battery. So now are you bringing a bigger battery bank to account for that? Or are you bringing the battery bank in the first place to account for that? And so there's that argument. And then I don't mind blowing right into the pad. I know you're saying it is easier to blow into the bag, but I don't mind. I'll just go right into the pad. It's fine. It is a little annoying, but whatever. It's not one of the camp chores that I hate the least. I'm like, filtering water is my least favorite thing personally. And so, okay. Sounds like we're in tune on that one. All right. Number 3. You got one more?
I got one more. It's a pretty low tech one. I couldn't find it. It's my bag, which is not here, but it's a USB lighter, like an outdoor USB lighter. Amazon, I think it's like $15 or something on Amazon. You plug it in with USB-C, and it's a lighter, like an arc lighter. It is the Look Fun electric lighter, some no name, $13.99, direct from China. But this thing is great. It's a little waterproof lighter. You charge it with USB-C. It's an arc lighter. So if you need to, refill the lighter, you just plug it in. It starts fires really quickly. I mean, it's a solid flame, better than just like doing the spark or even like a Bic where you're, it's like blowing around. This thing doesn't blow around. It's got this kind of gooseneck on it, so you could get it under some tinder. And it's got an LED flashlight on the back of it for fun. So this thing, I've used this camping. It works fine. I haven't really thrashed it. It stays in my pack, and I use it to light my camp stove and to do things like that. But it works well for $13, man. And I got a backup little LED flashlight. It's a no-brainer.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Look fun.
You got me interested in this one. I'll be honest. It's got one of those, like, I don't know, just like almost like this flare type flame. So probably similar to one of those stormproof matches where it just kind of goes and can really ignite something. So it's USB because you're charging the light, or it's using it serves as a battery when you're out there, or what's the USB advantage?
The USB, the flame is generated by like a battery that's inside there.
Okay. So you press a button.
Press a button, you start it. Yeah.
Okay.
And there's another one like this that SOL makes. It's like survival lighter or something. And that's a good one too. But this one, cheaper. It's got a flashlight on the back, and kind of did the same thing for me. And this one has USB-C as opposed to the micro USB on the SOL one.
Right. Okay. I might be buying one of these. You might as well. This is pretty cool because I bring the lighter anyway, and so it's a 1-for-1 replacement, and then it also has a dual purpose and might be like I might burn myself less using this thing.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean for $14, I was looking at I was looking at some options, and I bought a few different ones, from Amazon, from these kind of no-name brands, and this one seemed to work the best, and I've had it for about a year now. It's working fine. I haven't had a problem.
Okay. And I think it's what I'm seeing is $14 for 2 of them, and you can buy them individually for like $10. So that's even better. So anyway,
Yeah.
okay. All right. So my last one that I would like to bring up, I'm going to share my screen here. This one, you certainly will have an opinion about, positive or negative, and that is the Zoleo. So Zoleo, they actually sponsored our podcast kind of early when they were first starting to come out. This is a few years ago, and they sponsored our podcast, and I got a hold of one, and I tested it out, and I used it just kind of around the house, and it worked great. And so I was like, okay, this thing's really good. And then they kind of sold me on all the different features and the comparisons with the pricing plan and stuff. So I was kind of all in on it, and I was proud to be to have our podcast sponsored by them. And then we went on a Patreon backpacking trip to Canyonlands National Park. And we're like, you know what? While we're out here, let's do a little test. Who can send their message the fastest? I got the Zoleo. Somebody else has got the Garmin. Somebody's got the Spot, whatever we had going on. So we're going to do a little test. And the other 2 sent, and the Zoleo didn't. And I was like, wait a second. I tested this. What's going on? And I couldn't get it to work. And I guess there must have been some sort of like software update that needed to happen. But the update happened while we were out on the trip. So it was just kind of bad timing. But I was like, okay, but I don't ever want this to happen. I don't want this to be an issue ever. So they got to figure out a way to do the software update without wrecking my experience, especially if I needed, an emergency service or something. So that was my experience with the Zoleo. So I've been kind of down on them ever since. What's your take on it?
Here's the thing, that's actually not Zoleo's fault. That's happened to me with all kinds of devices where you get to the trailhead and it's like, hey, the app updated, log in to start it up, and then you're in the middle of nowhere and there's no cell signal, and then you're out of luck. So
you've had that with like Garmin's and such?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything. Yeah.
Interesting.
The problem is that the app can update in the background when you're not, the apps on your phone update sort of without you knowing it in the background. So that can happen. The firmware updates, all these things are designed to happen in the background. These days, Garmin especially is better at it. They'll say, there's a new firmware. Do you want to update it or do it later? But I've had that happen to me many times. And I think, so Zoleo's solid. I've tested the Zoleo. It uses the same Iridium satellite network that the Garmin inReach uses. So you can use it all over the world. A little bit different in that unit has its own telephone number. Right. So
correct.
If you use it with the app, people can just text that telephone number and it'll automatically switch between satellite or cellular or data. Garmin has a little trick to do that now with their messenger app, but the Garmin's don't have their own cellular number. It basically uses your phone as a user ID, but they try to do the same thing. But the Zoleo hasn't been updated in quite some time. I'm a fan of Zoleo. Anything that I could see like more competition in the satellite communicator. I mean, now we're finding it, but I was really hoping they would have updated the unit. Maybe it'd have a little bit of a screen, because there's buttons on there. You can do check-ins and SOS without your phone, but that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a little bit underpowered, especially when it comes to the newer Garmin inReach. When I look at the transmitting power of like each subsequent Garmin inReach, it always gets like a little bit more. And radio waves travel the speed of light, so it's not just like it makes it faster. It just helps it get through things like canopy a little bit more. That signal strength is a little stronger. And I think the Zoleo is a little bit low. The spots are definitely low, on the low side. So if somebody's out there listening and they're building a satellite communicator, just max power. Just go there. Don't hesitate.
Full power.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
So sounds like my own experience / ignorance might not have the full Yeah.
Well,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's not ignorance. I mean, don't be hard on yourself. It happens to everyone. I mean, you shouldn't.
Well, I didn't know that happened with other devices though, so I feel like yeah. That's why I'm sharing with you. I'm allowing for the feedback and the correction if need be. So it sounds like you didn't have that same strong opinion about it, but you still like other options better. It's still not
If I was buying one today, I would buy one of the ones I mentioned, which are newer, which have come out in the last year or two, just because they have better technology. They have better, the positioning systems are better. They'll use more positioning, satellite systems like Galileo and Beidou, the Chinese ones. Some of them use those. Like they're you get more for your money with the newer stuff.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. All right. So there you got 3 that were strongly recommended, and then maybe like a half, and then 2.5 that were not recommended or unrecommended. So you can take it for what it's worth. If you disagree with anything we said, please let us know. And leave us a comment for sure. Okay. So Chris is co-hosting today. So that means you are in store for Trail Tech Trivia coming up right after this. The trail is calling your name. Are you ready? Are you really ready? Our good friend Roan from Summit Strength can get you trail ready. Roan uses rock-solid evidence to design a specialized training program just for you. There are plenty of cookie-cutter programs out there that will get you only halfway up the mountain. Make it to your adventure summit with Summit Strength. The link to your success is always in our episode description, but you can check out all the information you need at summitstrength.com.au/online. It's time to be strong and pain-free for your next adventure. All right. Trail Tech Trivia, I got 3 questions. Chris, you got to get 2 correct to pass trivia. And it's been a while since I've had a guest host pass trivia, so I'm rooting for you.
I'm excited.
Here we go.
It's still $1 million prize?
Still $1 million prize. We used to have trivia punishments even for guest hosts, and then I felt really bad because you're doing me a favor by coming on the show, and then if you lose, I'm like, now you got to do me another favor, and I didn't really feel socially appropriate. So I'll figure something out in the future, but here we go. Number 1, what private company made the first handheld GPS system? A, Magellan, B, Garmin, C, MapQuest, or D, Waze? Magellan. Yeah, that's a gimme. I knew you'd know that one. All right. Magellan's correct. Number 2, which of the following is not an app that has trails and navigation? There's a ton of these. I didn't realize how many apps have trails and navigation.
Yeah.
Is it A, Komoot, B, Karen, like the rock Karen, C, iNaturalist, or D, Mappy?
So which one doesn't have trails?
Yeah. I basically just made one of these up.
iNaturalist.
iNaturalist does, and it tracks like data for biologists and I think, Audubon Society. And so Mappy, I just made up. That's not a real app.
Mappy. It will be now. Somebody will take that.
I know. Well, you could take it. I mean, I would trust you to develop an app.
That's something new. I did not know that iNaturalist had trail. I know, and I use it to take pictures of stuff and get help in IDing stuff, but I didn't know it had actual trail maps and stuff.
Okay. Well, hopefully I got that right because I looked it up and then I researched each of these apps to make sure it had the trails. Because when I typed it in, some apps were coming up that didn't actually have the trails and the navigation, but it looked like you could plot things to kind of like on some sort of map where you could communicate where certain biology stuff was happening.
Yeah. You could see on a map where the observations happen. It's pretty cool.
Okay.
And check out if you don't, I think they make an app called iSeek too, which is kind of a dumbed down version of iNaturalist, but they're great to have out in the trail just to identify new plants and, trees and those kinds of things.
Can you do that? I mean, if you have cell service, you could do like Google Lens, right? And just be like, what is this?
You can do Google Lens, but these ones, it's kind of like a scavenger hunt and a little gamification, and they'll be like, you're the Northwest Explorer, and some stuff like that. It's
kind of like that Pokemon Go, but for scientists.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't work offline though. I don't think, but
okay, gotcha. That's funny. All right, let's see. Last one. Which of the following is the most expensive item? So I got 3. And which of these is the most expensive? So I had, this is one of them, the FlexTail Zero Pump.
Okay.
Then there's the Outdoor Element fire beaner. That's where it's just like a carabiner with all these like little gadgets, and one of them you can kind of like, it has a flint on it.
Yeah.
Then there's the flip fuel transfer device where you can transfer partials from one fuel canister into like partials from another fuel canister. Which one's the most expensive out of those three?
That's a good question. I'm gonna go with the carabiner.
Carabiner was 14. Oh, I got it listed right here.
Oh, I lost.
It was $15.
Yeah.
The flip fuel transfers 35, and this thinking thing is going for $47 nowadays. $47.
Don't pay $47 for that if you're listening and you're thinking.
Correct. That's my take.
The lowest price one.
That's right.
So what's my punishment now? Do I?
If you want a punishment, I can come up with one. Maybe I thought about starting to do like promos, like, "Hi, my name is Cris Hazzard, and you're listening to the best backpacking podcast," and then I could like play that on a future episode.
That wouldn't be punishment.
Okay, well, it's not. Yeah, okay, that's nice of you, but yeah. Anyway, appreciate you playing along. And we got our last section, our last segment, it's tidbit section. I'm saving this for you. What can we look forward to on your YouTube channel or on HikingGuy.com? Anything you got coming up or coming out?
Yeah, so I'm doing a lot of testing with Starlink. I've been out in the desert with that, testing that versus the iPhone. I'm going to get my hands on the Verizon satellite stuff. So a lot more satellite coming as that all happens. There's a new satellite communicator called the HMD off-grid, which I've been testing. A lot of things in that ballpark, a lot more navigation apps, because it's kind of the Wild West as to your question earlier, like with Mappy, the new one. There's a lot more going on. There's programs like Gaia have kind of had some hiccups, and there's new ones called like Goat Maps, and there's Caltopo, of course, which has a good mobile app. So I'm doing deep dives on all of those. And for hikes, I'm excited. I mentioned earlier, I got the enchantments permit to camp in the core zone, which is awesome.
Cool.
I'm going to do Mount Fuji, weather permitting.
Wow. Okay.
Cool. And rim to rim coming up. Hopefully don't have the same problem Dan Becker had climbing out of there. But
he had the medical evac emergency. Was that a couple years ago now? Yeah.
But I've done it. I've done it over a dozen times now. So hopefully I can not die doing it.
You know what you're in for.
Yeah, I know what I'm in for. But lots of kind of bucket list hikes. That's what I'm most excited for.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. Well, Cris, man, it's been an honor and a pleasure to have you on the show. And thank you for bringing all your knowledge and wisdom that will definitely influence me moving forward. So thank you for your time, and thank you for coming on the show. Thanks so much, Carl. Always a pleasure. Happy to be here and have fun in Catalina. Don't get too close to the bison. Okay. Match you. Good advice again. All right. Well, have a good week, everybody, and God bless.